In this episode of Retiring Today, we'll discuss some of the most effective ways to pass on your legacy.
Charities, inheritances, and gifting of land can be an essential part of your legacy plan.
Passing on your legacy in a meaningful way right now on Retiring Today. Welcome to Retiring Today with Lauren Merkle. In this episode, we're talking about your legacy. I'm here with Lauren Merkle. He's a certified financial planner, and many things go into planning a retirement, Lauren, but one of the most important things is what happens when I'm not here anymore. So we're going to go through some very basic gifting options, and we're going to go through some more advanced steps as well. And Lauren, when people sit down with their advisor, if they're not doing some of the things we're talking about, they might want to think about talking to somebody that specializes in retirement planning.
Yeah, this is one of the components of a retirement plan that is oftentimes overlooked. And there's probably a lot of reasons for that. One is we're talking about when we're no longer here. And number one, that type of conversation is not all that fun to have. And also it's not fun to think about what happens when we're gone. And some people are just of the mindset, I'm gone, doesn't matter, whatever happens, happens. But when that mindset is prevalent throughout your planning, what we see then is the next generation has a mess to clean up. And maybe you have been through that yourself in trying to settle estates for maybe your parents or somebody that you know, or you have friends. You have personal experience with trying to clean up these messes. And most of the people that we talk to, they have ambitions, either specific ambitions to leave money intentionally to kids or grandkids or charities, or they want to make sure that whatever money's left over, it goes to whomever their loved ones and charities are in the most efficient way with the least amount of messes, which is why this legacy planning piece is absolutely essential. But unfortunately, we see mistakes on it all the time because it is overlooked. And that's one of the things that we want to avoid.
Okay, and let's talk first about the most basic level. On the most basic level, you need to make sure that the beneficiaries on your accounts are correct.
The beneficiaries on your accounts, it seems so easy, but there's a lot of different types of accounts, and the beneficiary designations get applied to those accounts in different ways. So as an example, the most prevalent type of an account where you're going to find a beneficiary designation is an IRA or 401k plan. But how many times we see mistakes on those beneficiary designations? Here's one with the 401k plan. And most people can relate to this, where your employer offers you a plan. That's a good thing. A lot of times they give you free money. That's the employer match. But a part of having that plan, your employer from time to time will shift who the custodian of that plan is. Meaning, if you log into Fidelity to see your plan, 2 years from now, the employer might change it from Fidelity to Vanguard. So then you're going to log into Vanguard. Well, what we see when that shift takes place is the beneficiaries you had designated on your plan when it was at Fidelity do not get transferred to the new 401k plan at Vanguard. Well, you don't know about it, or you don't think about it, or you say, I'm going to change it later, you just never get around to it. You pass away. Now there's no beneficiary designations on your account, which leaves a whole host of issues for your survivors. So those are the types of mistakes we see. The beneficiary designations on all of your accounts need to be reviewed on a consistent basis to make sure, number one, that it's right, it's what you want to have happen when you're gone, and that there's actually designations that are applied to those accounts.
So that's maybe IRAs and 401ks, what you should do. What about the other types of accounts that people might have?
We see even more mistakes on the other accounts because most people know on IRAs and 401k plans the beneficiary designation is there. Now it's just a matter of doing it right and making sure that it stays there throughout the time frame. But these other accounts, like your bank accounts, your checking accounts, your savings accounts, you could put a beneficiary designation on those as well. I would say probably 90-95% of the time, when people come in here for the first time, they do not have designations on those accounts. One, because when you set up the accounts at the bank most of the time is not saying, here is your payable on death form, fill out your beneficiary. So it's something that you have to be proactive and you have to ask them for most of the time. If you do not, check your bank accounts. If on your savings and checking, if you do not have a payable on death designation, what that means is when you pass away, now those monies go through probate. So you have the 6-month minimum time frame before that money can get through probate and go to the next generation or whoever you want it to go to. And there's extra cost involved. Whereas if all you have to do is simply fill out that form, the payable on death, the banks also will use an acronym, POD. So as long as you fill that out, now the money goes direct to the beneficiaries. It does not get tied up in probate, and it's the most efficient way to get those assets to the next generation.
Okay, so speaking of kind of inheritances, I think now we're going to move to an example that shows us how this can play out. Lou and Lori.
Lou and Lori, and in this case, Lou and Lori are married, and they have received an inheritance from their parents. Their parents are deceased. They left them some money. Now, Lou and Lori have an option. Lou and Lori can say, let's just call it $100,000, $100,000 IRA. Lou and Lori can say, okay, we're gonna accept that $100,000, and they can just take out what's required to be taken out every single year, or they can take it all out and do whatever they want with it. Or what they can do is exercise what is called the disclaiming provision, which means they can disclaim all of the $100,000, because in this case, Lou and Lori don't need it. Their retirement's fine. They're 65 years old. They're well on their way. Their plan's looking good. Their kids, Lou and Lori's kids, need the money much more. So they can disclaim all of it. They're not taxed on it. Now their kids have the option to stretch it out over their lifetime or take it all out as well, as long as their kids are listed as contingent beneficiaries on that account. So there's an appropriate way to do that in order for that to be an option. But in many cases, if you title the accounts the right way, that is an option for your immediate beneficiary to disclaim all of it or a piece of it.
Now, does that have to have been set up by the person whose IRA it was?
Yeah.
Or once Lou and Lori inherit the IRA, they can add their kids?
No, that's a great question. Let's say Lou and Lori's parents are Bob and Sue.
Okay.
Bob and Sue, that was Bob and Sue's responsibility. And technically the way this works is Bob and Sue had to have Lou and or Lori, either one, on as primary beneficiaries. And then they also needed to have Lou and Lori's kids, so Bob and Sue's grandkids, on as contingents. If the grandkids in this case, or Lou and Lori's kids, are not on the beneficiary designations as contingents, what we're talking about is not an option.
Okay.
So it's really important when it comes to titling your accounts from a beneficiary standpoint that it's done the right way to give the most options to your beneficiaries as you can.
And then let's say, because I know you work mostly with pre-retirees and retirees who sometimes want to pass it on to their kids and then maybe other times want to go to their grandkids. Now, what about grandkids that aren't born yet? Can you say grandkids to be or something like that?
Well, it needs to be a specific name.
Okay.
So in order for this to take place, this would not be able to take place if the grandkids are not born yet.
Okay.
You need to list a specific name.
We'll talk about charitable giving and your legacy when Retiring Today continues.
You have worked for a long time. There are so many decisions to make about your retirement. How much income do you need? How not to run out of money? Now is your chance, and you get one shot to get it right. Attend Merkle Retirement Planning's Passport to Retirement. We will discuss how to create tax-free income, how to avoid the next market meltdown, and how to wring every dime out of Social Security. Your time is now. Classes fill quickly. Call or text today. Zero cost to attend.
You made it. Years of hard work, investing, planning, and now you're here. The long-awaited reward you spent a lifetime looking forward to. But what now? After years of growing a nest egg, now you may want to manage it. Use it to fund your dreams. Make it last as long as you need it. And leave some for those you love. So what do? Wall Street continues to be uncertain, and some conservative options have dropped through the floor. How do you maintain opportunities for growth and reduce risk of loss from market changes? That's where we come in. We are Merkle Retirement Planning, your personal retirement planners. From investments to tax reduction strategies. With our Merkle Retirement Method, we can help you reach your retirement goals. You worked a lifetime to get here. Let us help you enjoy it to the fullest. For a complimentary visit, simply contact us today. Merkle Retirement Planning.
Welcome to Retiring Today with Lauren Merkle. In this episode, we're talking about your legacy. I'm here with Lauren Merkle. He's a certified financial planner. And Lauren, every day you sit down with families and you talk about many of the components of retirement, and a big one is what happens when I'm gone? Where does my legacy go? And charitable giving is often part of that conversation.
Charitable giving is a big piece of it. I think we have some of the most charitable clients in the world, just because we're always having these conversations. They want to know, it's important to them. I mean, they worked a lifetime for this money, and for most of them, it's important that they have a good understanding of what's going to happen to what's left over when they're gone. And a lot of times they get to a point where they're really comfortable with their financial situation, the income they're having come in at this moment, but plus what's projected for the future, and they want to enjoy the gifting while they're alive. And so they want to start gifting while they're alive and see what good that their hard work does for charities and people as they're alive as well. So there's a lot of strategies that we talk about.
Yeah, so I guess I can sort of picture what gifting when I'm gone looks like. I designate a place or a charity or a person really when I'm gone, but what is gifting while I'm alive? What could it look like?
There's multiple strategies that you can incorporate. We're just going to highlight a couple of them here today. One of them is called the Donor Advised Funds, or DAF, Donor Advised Funds. And this is really becoming a more popular strategy, especially since the tax law change of 2017. Because now the standard deduction is much higher, which means that a lot of people, most people, can't write off their donations. This is a strategy that you may incorporate, still get some tax benefit from your charitable gift, and you also have control over where your money goes from a charitable standpoint as well. So the way this works is you can set up a donor advised fund, and you can do this through a custodian. Right? And you can donate whatever amount you want to. Let's say it's $50,000. So you donate $50,000 to this donor advised fund. You get the immediate tax benefit in that year, which means you get to deduct as a charitable contribution that $50,000 for that immediate year. Now, you don't have to gift or send that money to the charity at any point in time. Certainly not that year. So you have $50,000 in this donor advised fund. You can invest that money how you want to underneath that donor advised fund, so that gives your gift the ability to grow over time. So if you want that, if you donated at age 60 and age 70, you still haven't gifted any of that money, it's just grown for that last decade. But at any point in time you want to, then you can start gifting as much or as little of that money as you want to. So if you have a particular church that you have an interest in donating to in this particular year, you can take $5,000 of that, donate it to the church, and the church doesn't pay any taxes on that money, and you receive the tax deduction when you gifted it to the donor advised fund. So it's just an avenue where you can receive some tax benefit from your charitable gift, and then you still have control on when and whom that money goes to at any point later down the road.
Okay, and you also have the option of giving your stocks to charities?
Yeah, so
or
you
securities?
You can give cash, you can give stocks, and this is a really cool strategy because there's a lot of people out there that have what we call highly appreciated stock. So maybe it's a part of an employer plan, or you are able to get a 15% discount every pay period of your employer stock. So you just put that in over the years and you have a really low cost basis, which means if you were to sell it, so let's say it's $100,000 and your cost basis is $15,000. So if you were to sell that stock, then you would have to pay taxes on $85,000 of the 100. Or what you can do as an option is you can just gift that stock, so you're not paying taxes on that because you didn't sell it. The charity's not paying taxes on it because they're a charity. So you can gift that money in the form of the stock, not pay the taxes on it, and then you still have the ability, if it's through that donor advised fund, through the ability to take that deduction on it also.
Okay, and you did say there are several kind of options as we talk about this advanced giving. You go over a few more of those in the Passport class?
We talk about these at the Passport class. We talk about them a lot in our individual meetings with people who want to talk about these strategies and clients. But at the Passport class, we talk about the 5 components. The legacy planning is probably the biggest of the 5 components. The most feedback we get about the class is on this legacy piece. because there's just a lot out there that's unexplored for most people, and they learn so much throughout that class as far as how to title the accounts the right way, some charitable gifting strategies, and just the entire legacy piece altogether.
Okay, we'll get you some more information on the passport and the 5 retirement components, or the Merkle retirement method. But first, we want to answer a question. So we've been asking you, the viewers, to text us your questions, and we've been getting some good ones. So here, Gary is in Story City, and Gary had texted us and asked, can I donate a piece of real estate to charity? So we'll answer that question, and we'll continue to talk about your legacy and your retirement when Retiring Today continues.
You have worked for a long time. There are so many decisions to make about your retirement. How much income do you need? How not to run out of money? Now is your chance, and you get one shot to get it right. Attend Merkle Retirement Planning's Passport to Retirement. We will discuss how to create tax-free income, how to avoid the next market meltdown, and how to wring every dime out of Social Security. Your time is now. Classes fill quickly. Call or text today. Zero cost to attend.
It's your retirement. How will you live it? How will you be remembered?
Will you be able to take me on vacation?
Will you be there for my ball games?
Will you teach me your values? You'll be able to play with me.
Oh, help me go to college. How will I remember you?
Have the retirement you dream about. Contact us today.
Welcome back to Retiring Today with Lauren Merkle. We're talking about your legacy plan and your retirement. And before the break, we took a viewer's question. You should know also there's a number on your screen. If you have a question, text your question to that number on your screen, and we'll try to get it answered right here on the show. So Gary from Story City asks, can I donate a piece of real estate to charity? So Lauren Merkle's here. He's a certified financial planner. He sits down with families every day. They talk about their legacy. And a lot of your families want to give to charity. So what's the answer to Gary's question?
The answer, Gary, is not only can you, but many times you may even want to, because it works more in the advantage to the charity, but also yourself as well. So how might that play out? If you have a piece of real estate, let's say the market value of that real estate is $200,000. If you were to sell that real estate yourself, you would pay capital gains rates on the gain. So if you had $100,000 invested into it, you wouldn't pay taxes on that 100, you would pay taxes on the $100,000 difference between the market value and what it is that you've already paid tax on. So in that scenario, you would sell the property, pay taxes on $100,000, then you could gift that money to the charity, but you're gifting less because it's minus the taxes. If you just gifted that property, then now you would be able to deduct the market value of that property, in this case at $200,000, and then the charity doesn't pay any taxes. If the charity chooses to sell the property, they're not paying the taxes on that sale. They get the full market value minus their selling costs, so the $200,000 minus the selling cost. So it can not only be a benefit to you, but it may also be a benefit to the charity because they receive a bigger dollar amount.
And something I know from my brief time working in nonprofit work, though, is that each charity does have a different gift acceptance policy. So if you have a charity in mind and you're thinking real estate, check their gift acceptance policy, because some will gladly take certain pieces of land and livestock and other things like that, and others are too small maybe to handle and process that. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm glad you brought that up, because cash is easy, right? I mean, everybody's going to take the cash.
Right.
But if you have a piece of property, if they can't use it, well, now they have to facilitate the sale of it, and some charities just don't want to or are not set up for that.
Yeah, they're grateful for your gift, but they just might not be able to process it. So we'll continue to talk about land. I mean, this is a good segue into here in a very heavy agricultural state. I know you sit down with families a lot of times who either have been gifted land or want to gift land. What are those conversations like?
Yeah, and a lot of times, especially here in Iowa, it's a matter of how do you transition ownership of this land to the next generation, because we have a lot of legacy farms, which means that these farms have been in the family for decades and decades, maybe going 2, 3, 4, 5 generations. So how do we transition this land to the next generation in the most efficient way? And there's a lot of questions we receive around this in the form of, should we start gifting this land now, Or should we wait and pass it on once we pass away? And there's good and bad. There's benefits and disadvantages to both sides. One of the reasons people are thinking about gifting land now is to avoid the long-term care costs. Meaning that if you need long-term care, you might pay $6,000, $10,000 a month for long-term care. If your land value will go into whether or not you are eligible for Medicaid to help with that assistance. And the state could come in and eat up the value of that land. So some people are thinking, if I gift this land, now it's out of my estate. If I need long-term care, then I can go on Medicaid and not have this asset as a part of my estate. That is true after 5 years, because there's a 5-year look back. Okay. One of the disadvantages of gifting land to the next generation while you're alive is they're not going to get what's called the step up in cost basis. So if you own, let's say it's a $1 million farm, you pass away, now the kids get what's called a step up, which means they're not paying taxes on that $1 million. They're only going to pay taxes on the $1 million plus the gain when they sell it. So if they sell it 10 years from now and it grows from $1 million market value to 1.5, then they'll only pay taxes on the 500,000. But they're not going to pay taxes on the $1 million. If you gift them that land, the $1 million farm, while you're alive, then whenever they go to sell it, your cost basis carries over. So if this is a legacy farm and your cost basis is only $50,000, then if they go to sell it, they're going to be taxed on the difference between the $1 million and the $50,000.
Wow.
So the tax consequence on these types of gifts or inheritance giving can be quite dramatic and probably should be a part of the conversation as you're thinking about or developing these strategies.
So setting up a trust is another option when there's land involved.
We have the trust conversation. Do we need a trust? What should that trust look like, or do we not need a trust? That type of conversation should happen more times than not, because the step up in cost basis, all that is referring to is the taxes. Who's going to be taxed? How much are you going to be taxed? When are you going to be taxed? Do I need a trust as a part of that piece of property, that real estate, the house or the family farm, is a whole completely different question, which does not impact the tax piece of it, okay? But what it does impact is, does your land transfer to the next generation the most efficient way from a transfer of ownership standpoint and probate cost, or does it not? If you incorporate your land, if you transition your land from just titled underneath your name to titled underneath a revocable living trust, you pass away, now that land does not go through probate, which means that just as an estimate, say the probate cost of your estate is 3%. If your land value is $1 million, that's an extra $30,000 that's going to cost your estate just to transfer ownership from the land to your beneficiaries, if you don't have it incorporated within a trust, if it goes through probate. If you retitle it into the name of the trust, now it bypasses probate. In this example, saves you about $30,000 on the estate transfer. And it's a private transaction, which means there's not two public notices that are otherwise required through the probate process. And it goes in a much more timely manner. In the state of Iowa, anything that goes through probate is a minimum of 6-month time frame to transfer to your beneficiaries. So many times, depending upon the value of the trust, how you want it to transfer, or the value of the land and how you want it to transfer, incorporating a trust within this process can be an important process, part of the process for you too.
Okay, so when it comes to legacy planning, what are the things you want people to take away from this show?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is, first of all, have a legacy plan in place. So you need to have a legacy plan in place. Make sure that plan is executing on what it is that you want to have happen to the different belongings that you have, whether it's monetary or it's physical as far as real estate or land. Review everything that you have, where you want it to go, make sure the documents that you have in place are getting that accomplished in the most efficient and effective way for you. And then finally, if charity is a part of your legacy plan, there's an abundance of charitable options and strategies. We talked about just a couple of them here today, but make sure that you review with a team of specialists as far as what your options are, and then making sure that those plans are put in place as well. But I think the notable part is that there are multiple options, many of which you probably haven't heard of. So it's just nice to investigate it and make sure that your monies are going in the best way possible to not only your charities, but your loved ones.
Okay, so when you sit down with families, you put together a method really to help them retire. You've helped hundreds of people retire over the last 20 years, and so it's called the Merkle Retirement Method, and legacy planning is what we focused on today, but that's just one of the 5 components. Lauren, what are the other 4 components?
Yeah, the Merkle Retirement Method is really a systematic planning process to make sure that your desires, your wishes are executed on not only at the beginning of retirement but all the way through. So the estate planning is obviously a piece of that. The income planning, when you retire, you need to have income still. So where is that income going to come from? Of the 81 different Social Security options you have, which options are going to work the best for you? The tax planning piece is such an opportunity. The tax planning piece is such an opportunity for most people because most people have not actively engaged in the tax planning component, which means that people are leaving a lot of opportunity on the table. With the healthcare and long-term care environment, with the premiums being so expensive, there's opportunity as far as providing that portion of the plan in a different way than most people have thought of. $2,000, $2,500 a month in healthcare premiums is not attractive for all that people and just downright upsets their retirement plan. So we need to incorporate that plan overall within the retirement focus as well. And then the final component is the investment piece, and probably the most important part of the investment piece right now for people is the recession will come at some point. It's just how much of the portfolio, how much of your life savings gets eaten up in the recession. You want to make sure you're protected as best you can.
Okay, and in today's show we talked mostly about the legacy piece, but those 4 other components, you can learn about those at the Passport to Retirement classes. They're an opportunity to get some education on retirement, your 30-year vacation. So it's a free 2-hour class held in several locations around the state, and we'd love to see you there if you'd like to learn more, or you can text the word visit if you'd like to come in and talk to Lauren and the team about your retirement future. But really, Lauren, it's about giving people peace of mind as they move to and through retirement.
Peace of mind, lessen anxiety, and just making sure you're making great, confident decisions that will impact you in a positive way through your retirement.
Thanks, Lauren, and thank you for watching Retiring Today.
You have worked for a long time. There are so many decisions to make about your retirement. How much income do you need? How not to run out of money? Now is your chance, and you get one shot to get it right. Attend Merkle Retirement Planning's Passport to Retirement. We will discuss how to create tax-free income, how to avoid the next market meltdown, and how to wring every dime out of Social Security. Your time is now. Classes fill quickly. Call or text today. Zero cost to attend.
From our family to yours, we hope you have a wonderful weekend.
We hope you enjoy the show.
Dinner break.